Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus3 Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here on Friday the 17th, just after the market's closed. My name is Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. How are we doing, Barry?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. We should
Are
be
you
having some
enjoying?
green beer, but maybe after the show.
Well, but in the spirit of St. Patrick, you had a green week. I had a green week. That's a good week.
That's a good week.
And man, in this blender of a chop fest that we got, having a green week is a
Green
is
week
no
with so muscles. It's just like,
is no easy task.
yeah.
Um, but let's dive in. We got a lot to cover on the show. You're going to go over the big six. You're going to do ES, bonds, crude oil, gold, silver, gold, copper, um, the dollar, and the euro. I'm going to be covering, the reason I mentioned silver is I'm going to be covering wheat, corn, gold, silver, copper, natural gas. So we got a full show, a lot
Yeah.
of charts to cover, and stuff is moving. And speaking of stuff moving, look at Bitcoin.
hmm
It's just, it's really the thing that I like about the chart, Barry, is that it's reacting to the levels, right? Even though
Really well. Yeah.
it's a new asset class. It's a volatile asset class. It's one that's sort of trying to break the mold of what a security is and all this sort of things. Look at how it reacts with the levels.
hmm
Just this past week or so, we stalled out here at the half square, pulled back to the full square, shot right up through the half square, tested it a few times. The lows of looks like Thursday and Wednesday and Thursday, the lows were right near the half square. And look at today.
Yep.
New high, held a first bar above the full square in a
Line to
long
line,
time.
side to side. Yep.
You got to go back to find a bar above the full square to June of last year.
hmm
Last time the bar, full bar was above the half square.
Right.
So this is a big move. The next stop, where odds favor we're going is this full square up here, which is call it 28,600.
Which is a lot of resistance.
Yep, a lot of resistance. We had this whole structure here where we went sideways for a couple months, battling at full square. So there should be substantial resistance there, but that's where the path of least resistance is right now. As long as we're above this half square, you got to be looking up here for the next price target. Also, all the squares and the levels that we talk about in all the markets that we cover are up on a Google Doc spreadsheet, which we will post the link to when we post the link to the video tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
You got anything else to add? I mean, right now the chart is bullish. I know you and I were just talking about whether we think the lows are in. Probably not, but for now, the direction is higher, and you got to trade bullish as long as it keeps capturing levels and
Well, it's
finding
going to go
support.
to the next level. I think that's kind of a given, but that might be where it turns around. So we'll see how it goes.
Right.
Mhm.
So, anything else to throw in or add here on this one?
No, not really. I mean, it's also working some kind of an expanding triangle there. If you take
Yeah.
February low and the March low together,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take the highs, you got that expanding, and
Yep.
so we could very well come back down and make another false break or go to our eventual target before
All
the end of the
right.
week. We'll see.
That's down in the box, by the way. That's what this box
Yeah,
is, the sort of target
yeah.
area.
We'll see, but
So,
it's a good indicator for risk, like you always say. So it's something
mhm.
to watch every week to see where things are.
So let me throw it over to you. Let's jump into the big five and see what's happened this week and what we can expect for next week. Speaking of expanding triangles,
Right there.
mm-hmm. And then
And
the
one of
bigger one back there, just a mess.
it's just the season for triangles, I guess. So,
Yeah, boy, is that a mess.
so well, besides the triangles, it's been an interesting week. Even though it looks like nothing really happened, what happened was this low held, and that's a big deal with all the stuff that was going on this week. We came into Monday with all that baggage, right?
Bank panics and
Everything, right?
runs and
Bank panics,
liquidity issues.
liquidity, drones going down. I mean, you name it. We had everything.
Right.
And we held the low.
And we held support.
Yeah, held support. So my guess for next week is, even with all the, shaking going on for next week's, all the news coming out, FOMC and everything else. If we hold this low going, well, since we did hold the low, and I'm guessing that we're probably going to have stronger market next week, long as we can hold above this 39.16. I'm just going to use it only for next week. Yeah, probably just for next week and see.
Boy, look at your green highlight, man. You really are in the spirit of St. Patrick's.
Yeah, we're in the spirit. Friday. Friday and St. Patty's Day, right?
There we go.
You got to take those.
Yep.
So 39.16. And if we can hold above that, I think we're probably going to take out 40.38. Maybe at least go up and test this high. Complete the expanding triangle, contribute to that, and get up into 40.75, 40.80. Who knows? Maybe 41 with some luck. But you guys, the key here is 39.16. If we get under that, then I'm expecting all kinds of chop. We're not done yet. And long as we're not taking out the low from last week, and we're below 39.16, I'm looking at that as chop. If we take out the low from last week, of course, then it opens up a lot. And we talked about this 36.19 becoming a reality for some reason, for whatever reason. So we have that. And I'm kind of bracketing everything based on 39.16. But that's, again, if you look at this week's price action, it's almost a balance point, right? So going into next week, it'll still be the balance point. And so that's the key. Watch that. Above that, we're bullish. Below that, it's mixed. And below 38, it's below last week's low. I think it could get a little bit weak.
Barry, you can't discount enough what you say regarding all the crap that's been thrown at this market, and it just won't go down. Think about, you and I have been through market cycles, crazy 87 crash, 90 crash, 2000 crash, 2008. And when you see a market that won't make new lows on terrible news, you got to be careful if you're short. You really do, because it's just telling you something. For some reason, it's absorbing all this bad news and not going down.
Well, just remember, on top of that, now going off the low, right? If we take that, we came up, we squared out to 90 up here. And after that, holding above the half square is actually very bullish.
Yeah.
And we had all kinds of bad news this week that could have taken the market down, but we didn't. So I'm thinking, if we can hold above 39.16, like I said, I think we can see a positive week of some sort.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not like we're sitting here calling for a new bull market, but if you're sitting here waiting for a crash and thinking we're going to get a crash, I think based on the technicals and based on just what's been thrown at it and the fact that support held, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, well, this crash is more of a long shot here. But if we take out 38,
then it's on again, right?
Yeah,
then you got to reassess.
Again, right? Yeah, so we have to go with the pattern. Plus, we're making higher lows. It looks okay, and taking out 40.38 going into next week will also automatically take out the trend line, the down channel. So that's in play. So a lot of things get solved if we can hold above this and take out 40.38 to the upside.
Right, and if we stay between, it's going to be more chop where you gotta alter your tactics. You got to smash and grab. You and I've been talking about that. Take quick profits when you got it. Size down, because it's just otherwise you could get whipsawed to death in here. Yeah,
if we're in this zone here, then I would say it's going to be more of the chop, more like this over here, right? So anyway, so far it looks, after all of that, it's pretty positive, and that's okay. Looking at the weekly, weekly broke out of this down channel a while back, right?
Mhm.
Didn't quite get hold above the 52, but we're kind of flirting in that area, which is typical for the S&P. It's fine.
Mhm.
But it's holding up there, right? We got very clear higher lows in the weekly,
Mhm.
and this is 60 degrees coming off the high. It's okay. I think it held in the right area. We talked about this 38.96. Yeah, we dipped a little, but we managed. This is the area we got to watch. Just right in there.
Mhm.
And yeah, it didn't have a strong close, but maybe because of all the options expiring today. But we'll see what happens next week. But overall, looking at the pattern and everything, and the big picture is it's holding up okay. So not as pessimistic, I guess.
Right. Right.
And then for reasons would be all technical and structure based, right?
And if the levels get violated, we change our view. Simple as that.
Well, I mean, levels drive everything, eh? I mean,
Yep.
that's the reality. So we have to go with that.
Mhm.
Let's move on to bonds. Another
Interesting week in bonds, huh?
mhm. I mean, really pushing that 132.
Mhm.
And earlier I thought, well, we could do a false break and then turn. Doesn't look like it's going to be a false break. We're spending too much time up here. So it's
Agreed.
possible we push up and test the half square, but it's a little too early to tell. And I could modify this channel later, but I was thinking, there's also a big Gartley setting up in here.
Mm.
So, I mean, that's a possibility, right?
Right.
So maybe I'll put that on here. I saw that. And it's usually these funky looking Gartleys that end up really working.
Right.
So yeah, that's what's happening. So that would put us into 137, right?
Mhm.
Right, and here's the box. We'll keep it in there for now, see what happens. With all this stuff going on, and this is the best, well, let's see. Well, up here is another possibility, right? Coming up into the half square, which is really important. That's around 135. Gartley sets up a little bit higher. So, I mean, that's just a reference. We'll see how that works out. We'll just keep it on there for now.
Yeah, that
And
ABCD is what I was noticing too when I was looking at the review. 138 area, possibly.
yeah, right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in line. I mean, we could go push a little bit past the half square, get in there, and then turn. But whatever the case, I'm looking. I mean, this is certainly not going to continue, but it might go more than we think
Mm-hmm.
because of the part of the cycle. Because we're going to probably go, whatever reasons we had to raise rates, we're probably going to back off a little bit for a quarter or so, and then it's going to come back to bite. So until then, we have to watch it and see how it behaves.
Mm-hmm.
And then go for the final lows later on, right? So the bonds are not in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how it works out. But for now, yeah, let's watch this. Clearly, with that kind of a downtrend, this is looked at. We're going to look at this as a counter trend, and yeah.
Barry, you know what else is Monday? I was just
Mhm.
thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
The vernal equinox is Monday.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And so that's the first day of spring. That's, when we talk about cycles, I try and explain to people, everybody's experience, we all experience 4 cycles every year, right? The changes of the seasons. And if you go back and study your market history, sometimes, not always, around those changes in seasons, we get, change in trends in the market. So it's something else to watch coming up next week.
Right. Plus 22nd is, we have FOMC and also VIX expirations on the 22nd.
Yep.
And,
so
a lot of things setting up. We'll see.
Yes, indeed.
For now, we'll stick with this. And just to just to share like how we look at these markets. So we were looking for this market was weak. We were looking for a smaller correction, right? Maybe up, very, very small, maybe up to 130 would have been a reach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we did a little bit of expanding triangle, we broke to the upside that one day, that was a red flag saying, hey, something else is going on here, not to mention the news. So now it's all geared up. So we'll see. And now we're going to wait and see, because we didn't get it didn't get the sort of the textbook false break that we could have gotten, right? Under different circumstances. So we'll wait to see next week what happens. But I think upside is probably not done yet. That's the point.
Agreed.
Especially closing about 132, right?
Mm-hmm.
By a good bit. All right, let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly, as you can see, we came up to the old level, the quarter of the square. And well, it could stall in here. We could go just a little higher, but it's in some kind of consolidation going up to the upper limit. To me, it just looks like another one of these triangle moves, right? And these are typically negative.
Mm-hmm.
So, something like that. So I don't think it's a trending move. So we wait.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's move on to. Well, here's the Dow, right? Is it? Yeah. I was looking at this earlier. I don't know why it popped up, but wrong chart. But let's talk about it now that it's here.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because we had 72 degrees going up into the high, right?
Look at that 90.
And the high to low was 90.
Mm-hmm.
And and you can't really ignore that. So I feel like, and we had a 90 going up, right? We had 45 bars, 72 degrees. So everything kind of, I'm watching this chart because it's very structurally, it's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And because the 50% retracement held, that's another reason, I feel like it's kind of a bullish deal here. Up.
I'm with you.
And that's why I said, if we take out the low, that means if we violate the 50% and we're already up on 90, then we're going to start another leg down. It's another whole, it goes negative from there. So
it's a
we're
good
at
marker.
One of those balancing decision points.
Yep, it's a very good marker.
Mm-hmm.
Finally broke out of our congestion.
Perfectly on time, eh? I mean, I thought the break would be to the upside, but well, here we go. Let's do a fake first.
Right.
Move up, right? And then we talked about that being a possibility with crude, always.
Absolutely. So
the funny thing is it really practically broke out almost like within 1 day of
the 90.
Of the 90, right? So so it was perfect. We were looking for it, and it was making higher lows, so the probabilities would have been to the upside. That's just probability. So we came down. Fine. It's even better now because now it's coming right into a square.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 135 by 270. It's a good, pretty solid square.
That is a solid square.
Yeah. So long as we're above, we can hold above like 62, let's say 64 and between 62 and 64, the square would come out, pan out. So it's a good spot. And we'll wait for some evidence. But I think if this holds next week, then, we can look to maybe trade to the long side. And if we somehow end up below this square, then I think we're not quite done yet, meaning maybe not necessarily downwards, but we're definitely going to consolidate some more.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's setting up here is we have a 3 drives coming into this square right here, right?
Yep, I see that. Nice.
Which is also important. So a lot of things setting up for a low. Maybe we already had it, but I think since exact 270 is today, you can go plus or minus a couple of days. So maybe 22nd will get play into this somehow. and we'll hit the, we got the trend line, we have the square, we got everything setting up here. So it's definitely a spot to watch. There are times when things are boring, like the last 3 months.
Right.
Then there are times where we really have to watch. So, if you ask me again, what market you're going to watch next week? Well, crude's definitely one of them, not just crude, but also a lot of oil related stocks, tankers and all these other things that we track.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good time to watch those because they all sold off and, there are really good values out there now. And when everybody's panicked, you have to keep an eye on the things that are worthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like crude is in one of those cycles, and if we make a cycle low here, it's there's some good trading to be done. So might as well talk about it before
Agreed.
it
I think crude it's a very interesting spot. Look at it right down to your level.
right down to level. And I remember dragging this out last week, and I said, well, if we fail there, then we have to go down here. This is the next support.
Yep.
And well, here we are. So this is, at first you're like, oh, well, he didn't break to the upside, but I think this is better because it's going to give us a better trade. Now everybody's in a panic. So, you want everybody to be bearish before the corner comes in. Coming out of here, it was kind of neutral, right? Not everybody knew, and kind of a little bit of bullish. So this is working out okay. So 62 that I mentioned on the daily chart is right there.
Mm-hmm.
So right in there would give us a false break on this low from December 2021 low here, and maybe a little lower, 6150. Take this out. Boy, that would just set it up beautifully. So we can just wait and see.
Yeah, I'm right with you on that. I got weekly full square support at 64.25 and monthly full square support at 62.75. So right in that box.
Yeah. Now we have a lot of things lining up here. It's no joke, and crude is a really good market. So I'm actually I called you midweek about some options, right?
Yeah, we were
today. So just
time to look.
Just trying to stay ahead of it. So here we have 50% of the next square.
Yep, right there.
So this is the zone. So let's just see. We're not planning on blind buying the low tick. We just want to sort of understand the zone where the low could come in, and then trade it.
I started watching for the 4-hour setups, and I haven't seen any yet. But
already,
they'll be coming. They'll be coming.
Yeah, they'll be coming. But that's what you do. You want to let the low come in, and then start trading. So that's good.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to gold. Very good week. And the 1940 was the breakout point. You can see last couple of days this week before Wednesday and Thursday, we were banging up against that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we had this inside day on Thursday, and that was sort of the marker, right? After that, boom, broke out right to the 90. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of upside left here. I mean, this is setting up to be a really good potential for false break, especially with news coming out on the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
So this has the feel for that. Now, if we can somehow, on the next correction, hold above 1940, then I think you continue to trade the upside. We're in good shape.
Yeah.
So look at how we sort of threaded this, right? We were looking at 1814 held, we're going to go test 1887, right? We did that. 1887 has to be, we have to hold above it. And you can see how Wednesday, the low was right there. It held above it, right?
Perfect.
Perfect. And then the test came back to 1940, broke out at 1940, bam. Now you're back at the 90-degree square. And I mean, it's just one way of trading. There are lots of ways to trade, but anyway, here's a good example of how these levels work even on a straight up market. Right? You can see where the checkbacks were, right? Where the breakouts were. Each level played a really good part in that. So nice.
Really good.
Let's take a look at the gold weekly. So we left last week talking about this 1881 being resistance, and if we can break above that, then 19 will be taken, and then 2000 being the next level to test. And we got pretty dang close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And getting off the gate on Monday, it was really on 1881, right? You can see the open there, the low. And boom, well, chart tells the rest of the story. So basis weekly, long as next week, we can hold above 1919. It's really in good shape to challenge 2100. That's my take. That's the weekly gold.
Looks good. The metals look good.
Metals look good.
Copper included.
Copper came into our little ABCD, 50%
Nicely.
square, just like
Yep.
we talked about last week. The thing is, he didn't have to stop. He could have kept going, right? But it
Yep.
didn't.
And it gave you a reversal bar today too.
And it gave a reversal and it stopped. I mean, look at the reverse. I mean, the same day reverse we had on the day of we made the low, right? I mean, the close was way up here.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really strong point. And other than the Gartley, we had the 50% of the square here. So it looks good. I mean, a little too early to tell. We need a little bit more confirmation, but it's good to see that it came exactly to our, target before stopping. So far, so good. And if at low holds, then I think we can probably look to trade to the upside.
Agreed.
Hopefully. Otherwise, it's going to consolidate again. So,
yeah.
And looking at the weekly chart, well, I mean, the bigger trend is still intact. We got the bigger, we have this big fork going up, and this 90 square we were looking at it held pretty well. And the correction's been very tight. If you notice, it's not a big long-legged correction.
A
couple of months, and it's very, very, very tight. And this very well could be the low because it came, that low came right into the center of this prior consolidation, and we have these other highs up here. It's a good spot. We'll see if we recover from there. We get on top of these, 3.9 or so right there, right above these. I think we're back on the track again, theoretically.
Agreed.
Right. Let's take a look at the dollar. Daily, well, we left last week with the 90, saying, well, pull back to the 90 is not so bad, and actually kind of healthy if it can hold there. And it was kind of healthy. It had a big old strong day after touching it on Wednesday. So, and although Thursday and Friday were inside, I don't know. I think it looks okay. Long as it's above this 90, which is about 103.5, so as long as we hold above that, I think we're good to the upside. But it's a little too early, right? A little cautious, but I feel it's positive. Now, if it goes negative, it's going to really go negative, because then we'll probably come down to this down here next week, which is about 101.5. So we'll leave it at that. 3.5 would be support next week, and looking for the farm market above that. Let's take a look at the weekly dollar. Well, since we did come up to the 90 on the weekly, I'm looking at this as a new cycle. We talked about this pivots, turning points against the square last week. So if you guys didn't see that, please catch it. Take a look at that. We talked about these corners and how we use them to sort of stay with the trend, the new trend. And speaking of the new trend, so I think that low came in. Because it came in, we're looking at this as the first impulse. Here's a pullback. It might go another couple of weeks, but if the levels hold, that might be it. And we're looking for it to go higher. Even if we get an ABCD up, it's going to be up close to above the half square. And if we get up the half square, above the half square at this point, the dollar's going to be very, very strong. So it might consolidate, but I don't see it being very negative at this point, even with all this stuff going on, right? So
agreed.
So it's okay. Technically, it looks okay. We're in the right place. Lastly, we have the euro, and which came up to 144, turned back down, kind of got stuck here. midway through the square. We're also doing a expanding triangle of sorts, which is must be the thing these days.
I swear, so many markets.
Yeah, man. And just when everybody gets on it and start trading it, it's going to fade and we're going
It'll break.
something else, right?
Right.
Something else. But for now, it's working, and long as it's working, these are usually break to the downside. So let's see what happens. We're looking at this as a high, and low didn't quite come in. Instead, we got this kind of a consolidation, expanding triangle. Let's see how it works out. This could mean another week of sideways, but with interest rate stuff coming up next week, we'll see what happens. But it's right there in the middle of the middle of the expanding triangle. So not much to do, but wait till the next corner comes in, is what I can say. And here's the weekly. Again, we didn't quite get down to the 288, down from the high, which, the old support. And we're holding above it. So I feel like, it's possible that we somehow consolidate in here through all kinds of magic before getting a little bit weaker.
Right.
But boy, you watch out after we take out this 288-degree level, which just happens to be around, let's say 104. I'll go with 104, right? And I know they're really trying to keep it above, out of this area, because if it breaks the 104, it just gets more and more terrible. And like I said before, I don't think the low is in place. We really didn't cycle out there, so we'll see. I think it's on the short side, but wait for your short signals and everything else. I wouldn't jump on this, especially with the expanding triangle working its way through. And well, that's all I got.
Excellent.
Thanks. And if you guys like our work, please subscribe and like and comment and share these videos. It'll help the channel grow.
Yep.
And a growing channel is always more motivation to do stuff, right?
That's true. We'll put out more content.
Yep. Anyway, let me put it back to you. I know you got a bunch to cover, so let's get going. Ben, last week we talked about this low coming in on the square, right? And that holding, and here we go. There's the result.
Here we are. And it's interesting that happened right near our timing too, the vertical lines here, that we got things going to the upside. So, anybody that's been watching the show knows, how we kind of use the squares. Last week we talked about, the pullback that was taking place because we got below this half square. You can see where we found support, full square. Now we've actually got a bar that's today's bar is completely above the half square. So this is the new spot. Again, all these levels are on the spreadsheet, but what we're looking at is, call it 12,500. As long as we hold above that, probabilities favor that we're going to push up to the full square up here at 13,100 in that area.
Right.
If we lose this square, we could either be in chop or, obviously if we lose this full square down here, then we're heading down pretty hard. So for now, just like, we saw, when you were doing your review on the ES, the setup is looking fairly bullish. With everything that was thrown at it this week, we couldn't, the pullback basically held here on the full square, which is what, if you go back to November, December, where we put in the highs, as we were coming out of the October low. So this is bullish right now. And our marker here is this half square. Anything else you want to add here? I see another expanding triangle that you've been spotting all over the place. Here's one here.
Right. Well, I think your half square is going to have to act like my 3916. And so we'll have to see how it breaks, which side it breaks to.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're above it, it's in good shape.
Well, we broke the triangle to the upside, so a pullback to retest that would be normal. So after that, we'll have to see how it goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now on the commodity side, we're starting to see, decent bottoms forming in several things. Barry covered gold and silver, which I'll just highlight. I mean, gold and copper, which I'll highlight quickly, and will include silver. Wheat and corn, I mentioned them last week. The setups are there, so let's jump in and start with the grains. Now, the interesting thing about wheat is we had some nice squares down here. On the 4 hour, we had a 90 in time. There's that 90 here on a 4 hour basis. 108 if you're looking at the daily. So the thing I liked about this low is if you drop down to the 4 hour, you can see higher highs and higher lows. But if we're looking strictly at the daily here, look at how we captured this half square. All right, we pushed up off of the low. First bar could barely touch it. Next bar was crisscrossing it. Next bar was straddling it, and then today we had a full bar above it, with the low right on the half square. So while it's early, I think you look at your lower time frames. You look for setups here. We watch the first pullback when it comes. What does it look like? Does it give us that higher low? When it gives us the higher low and reverses, then we've got really high confidence that this is a good low here. But this is the sort of anatomy of a bottom when you look at it on a 4 hour basis. Now we want to see, how far does this first leg up push, and then where does that first pullback stop, and can we get a higher low off of it?
Right.
But you can see we have a nice, wave structure coming down. First push, second push, and here's your third and final push. So this is the kind of structure I look for when we're coming into a low. And again, if you flip down to the 4 hour, you can see in this move up here it just looks sort of straight up on the daily. We've had highs, pull back, higher low, higher high, another pullback, higher low, higher high. So I'm liking wheat. I'm liking the action, and I think this low right now, evidence is starting to point that we've got a decent low there. I know you and I have been chatting about the grains, Barry. Anything else you have to add here on wheat?
Well, I was just looking at my chart while you were talking, and I have from the high back in March 2022 to if you take that and you go 360 degrees down on my chart, it gets into about 641, right around 641, wherever that is. It's a little lower.
A little bit lower, right in here.
Right in there. So, we're pretty close. That would be 360 from the high. And we're so, it's possible that we get one more, maybe a false break or something. And we'll see how it works out. So far, it looks good. It's coming right into it.
Yeah. Put it on the radar, a lot like we did with coffee a week, a month or so ago, and cocoa and those sorts of things. It's forming that bottom, and we'll see. We just have to watch it and see how it plays out, and see if we can get decent entries with good risk reward here. Let's jump and take a look at the next one. Corn's a little more bullish if you look at it from a structural standpoint, right? It hasn't had as deep of a correction,
right?
But look at off this last correction, what we did. And now look at the reaction off of that.
Very strong. Yep.
Strong reaction right at the full square, right? We pushed down, messed around here for 3 or 4 days, and then we just pushed right out. So I'm pretty confident that, this was the swing low, and this was your first move up off, and here's your pullback. Even if we just do an ABCD, it takes you up into here.
Right.
A pretty good move up. And if this is, push 1, 2 is the pullback, this could be 3. So I like corn a lot. I think the fact that it mostly corrected sideways since last summer. This correction was a long sideways correction, shows that it's a pretty bullish correction. So dropping down to your lower time frames, looking for entries on this one, I think will be very, very fruitful given the structure. Anything else you jump out to you here on this one?
Yeah, I think I'd like to see it break above that little triangle formation right before the low. Yeah, right in there.
Mm-hmm.
If it breaks that, and your half square is pretty much where my half square is, which is about every 30 degrees. I have a 60-degree square and you're running 28.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the high to low,
644.
yeah, from high to low, I had 120-degree correction. Then we
Mm-hmm.
did a 50% correction going up into October high, was 50% of the down leg. And now we just pulled back and we've been consolidating since. So if we can get about that halfway point, I think it's a positive tilt.
Yeah. This and the action in wheat tell me that there's money starting to come into these grains.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, we've had a major correction off of the, those initial push into war in Ukraine highs that we saw, and now they've pulled back and consolidate. This one was consolidating. Wheat was actually correcting pretty sharply, but now they're both showing those characteristics of this being a pretty decent bottom here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the grains. Now let's take a look at the metals. Barry covered a couple of them, but we're going to look at them a little differently and look at all three. So here's gold. So my square is a little different than Barry's, and it's painting a pretty bullish picture here. And so we'll see early next week whether or not we can clear this full square.
Mm-hmm.
And the full square is around 1973. So if we can, push up and then sit on top of this, it's going to be really, really bullish.
Yeah.
The reason being is we'll be sitting on top of, the early February, late January highs here, and then this other point here and this other point here. So you can see how important this thing has been since, early 2022.
Yeah.
Rejecting it multiple times over here. And now we're challenging it for the second time, within a month and a half.
Right.
So gold looks good. We were calling out this low as it came in. We got a strong push up, pull back, couldn't even make it back to the full square here. Again, giving us a higher low, and now we've got another higher high daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So gold looks bullish. The key level for me this coming week, watch this 1973 level. As long as we can stay on top of that, the next leg up could be starting, and we could be challenging the all-time highs in gold, around 2065, 2070.
Right.
In the not too distant future.
Mm-hmm.
I know you covered gold, Barry. Anything to add looking at the chart here?
Well, you're kind of setting up in the same way. You broke out at the 46-degree line there. So it's either, if we settle above that, I think we got we could have new highs.
Yep. Could be fairly soon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump over to gold's cousin, which is silver. Take a look at silver. A lot like gold, it's pushing up above a full square, which, as we know, is very bullish.
Mm-hmm.
I put in this little ABCD. It's hard to see in here because these were smaller bars. But as soon as we hit that level, the correction level, the ABCD completion level, look at the move we got out of there.
Exactly.
Really strong move. So a lot like gold, something ended here.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're starting something new. And by the looks of the bars, it's pretty bullish. As Barry said, we got up here, we made a high, and then we did a few inside bars, and now we're pushing again, closing on the highs for the day and going to be on the highs for the week above this full square. The key level here is this 2267.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting on top of that, like we did here, would be a second time, since December, and most likely would lead to a breakout, helping us challenge the all-time highs in silver here. So I like the looks of silver, like the looks of gold. This one, if you do the ABCD like on a 60-minute or 4 hour, you can really see how nicely when it came right into the target, we just shot out of there. And that's always a good sign
Right.
that a correction has ended and something new started. So
Mhm.
silver looks good. 2267 key level next week. Let's see if we can push up and stay on top of that. Anything to add on silver here, Barry?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Last metal we'll look at. Let's take a look at copper. I put this chart out during the week and showed people sort of in real time that we had price and time right here on copper. This is a perfect A, B, C, D right down into the full square. This, again, the reaction, Barry talked about it. We're sitting above the full square. The big number on a longer term basis, like weekly chart, is right around 4. We get above 4, this thing should be really ready to roll. The other thing I liked about copper is, we found the ABC into the full square on a timing. This vertical line here gives us timing right into the November, December, early January highs.
Mhm.
I mean, it's textbook, right? Textbook
Yeah.
structure.
Yep.
So pushing up, getting above this half square at about 410 would be super duper bullish. Clearing 4 on 399 4 on a weekly, monthly basis would also be super bullish. So
Right.
we'll watch the next week. The key thing on the downside here is we want to stay above. We got a bar above the full square today. We want to stay above that full square, and it builds the platform for the next push higher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So copper looks good.
Yep.
And the last one we're going to cover, we've got a lot of questions from this one during the week, is natural gas. Let's take a look at the Widowmaker. We've been tracking this thing since in here, looking for a spot of where the low is, right? And we saw this low come in, had a decent trade up in here. We failed at the full square, right? And that was an important point. Right? We didn't clear that full square to where we could really get things going. So now we're looking and saying, where is this next pullback going to stop? Where are we going to put in a higher low if we're going to put it in? Well, right now we're coming down ready to challenge this full square, this half square. So this is, to me, this is your do or die point. If we cannot hold this half square, then this low looks very suspect. If we hold that half square in reverse, then we got something going here in nat gas.
Right.
A lot like crude, that Barry reviewed. You're in an area of good support. You're in a target zone that we've been looking for, where we want to be buyers. We're just looking for, like when we came out of here, we had a really nice 4-hour setup that we covered. We're looking for another setup on the 4-hour now to let us know that, okay, we're getting a higher low and we've reversed. We can take a shot with a tight stop and a good risk reward. But it's late in the game for this decline, right? Whether this is the low, or we come down and do some sort of false break, or we come down and hit this full square, we are in the timing and the price area where a good low is going to come in, and we're going to see a sustained move in the opposite direction. We're just trying to dial that in and see if we do get that higher low on this first pullback. We got the higher high, right? We cleared this. Yep. We made that higher high. That's the first step. Now the next step is, can we get a higher low than here? And so I want to keep people updated as to the progress here, and we see what comes next. Anything else to add here on the Widowmaker?
Well, we're just gonna watch it till it comes in.
Yeah, that's right.
And, we're on it, and we ought to be.
Yeah, and the interesting thing this week, with everything that's gone on with the banks and the Fed making the credit facility away and available and guaranteeing the deposits to any amount, it's caused a lot of markets to move.
Yeah,
not just stocks, not just bonds, but a lot of the commodities have begun sort of waking up or giving us additional clues and better clues as to what's going on, which is why, this week, for the first time in probably 7-8 weeks, we've talked about multiple commodities. We talked about wheat, we talked about corn, gold, silver, copper, natural gas. Some of the softs like cocoa and coffee are still trying to put in that higher low and see if we get something going on there. So things have changed based upon actions that we've seen this week. So we always talk about critical weeks. This week is really going to be interesting to see what these various markets that we're watching are going to be doing. I know you said, Barry, one that you're going to be watching really closely was
Crude, yeah.
Crude
bonds,
specifically, and bonds.
Yep.
Anything else you're gonna be keeping your eye on that is kind of at a do or die point that you want to
gold
see?
and gold, of course, and the S&P.
Right.
Yep.
S&P, your key level is that you want to see that 39.16 hold, right?
Hold or not, right? That's kind of a balance. If it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
then we're in a whole nother scenario. And if it holds, I think then we can gung ho and check out those highs.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me is this big move we saw, referring back to our conversation about the vernal equinox coming up. The timing of it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's how it usually comes in.
I know it's fascinating to me to be an observer and watch that, where you see these moves. Now, is it potential we're going to see highs in gold and silver, and the equinox may mark highs for them? Absolutely possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's what we have to be open to. You have to you watch the price action coming into one of these events, and then you watch it going out. And that gives you the clues, based on the structure as to what's most likely to happen next.
Exactly.
So happy spring, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Happy spring coming up on Monday, and keep your eyes open, because there'll be a lot of clues provided based on the price action coming during the next week.
Yep.
All right, Barry, have a good weekend. Great show, good review, and we'll see everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Ben. Good coverage. Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.